Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. I'm Rich Maletto, your co-host, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Engel. We're here to talk to you about some more NASCAR. All brought to you by FantasyGuru.com and the Elite Plus Network. Please head over to FantasyGuru.com. Check out our MVP Game Time package. $39.99 for 12 months, 1 year, a whole year. You get everything included as far as NBA, NHL, NASCAR, racing, horse racing, PGA, MMA. Oh my gosh, there's so much more. The only thing you don't get is NFL and Major League Baseball. So we got you completely covered. And frankly, Sean, not to toot our own horns here, but we've already won that money back for people for the most part. I mean, last weekend you covered basically half of it on your own. So kudos to you, man. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing all right tonight, Rich. It's been a bit of a busy week on my end. Been working and grinding away, lot to cover and a lot in order to go forth and look out on the internet. But, I'm making my way through and I'm still chucking along, still kicking.
Now, are we going to get fired up, Sean, tonight? Because you told us. You told us in the Discord, we're going to get fired up, Sean. And we get enough fired up, Rich. So I'm all for this fired up, Sean. I'm ready for it. And I can't wait to get your reactions from Richmond this past weekend, which I know we both have some reactions. I'll save some of mine till after yours because I know you've got some good meat on the bone you want to share with us. So let's get right into it. Joe Gibbs swept the weekend, right?
Yep.
Chandler Smith won the Xfinity race. Denny Hamlin won the Cup race late. Why don't you tell us about that, Sean?
And there goes my smile already. All right, there we go. Let's just get into it. In my opinion, I thought the NASCAR product this weekend, worst of the year. I'm just going to throw it out there. Worst of the season.
Now, are you talking like the whole kit and caboodle? Are you talking the racing itself? Are you saying the racing itself, all of it, coverage, TV, like everything? Or do you have it narrowed down to one or two things?
I'd say it's kind of a culmination of a lot of stuff ultimately, because the Xfinity race was kind of uneventful. Really, the only exciting part was Joey Gase ripping out the bumper and throwing it to Dawson Cram's hood.
That was hilarious. And what's even more hilarious to me, it was the fine. I mean, that fine was so small, I could afford the fine, right? I mean, it was a $5,000 fine. I hope the sponsor covers it because it was great sponsor appeal, in my opinion. I mean, TV time, the whole deal. It was obviously very personal for Joey. I guess he's helped Dawson out, and so that was part of his frustration. But I'll be honest, man, that was the highlight of the weekend.
It was.
For me, anyway.
Considering all that happened, it might as well be the highlight of the weekend because that was the most entertaining thing out of both of the races combined, for sure. I definitely watched that over a few times because we've seen all different sorts of helmet throws. We've seen drivers throw their Hans devices, their seatbelts.
Gloves. Right.
But we don't usually see the whole bumper come off and get thrown.
And to be fair, it wasn't even just the bumper. It was the whole back panel. Right. I mean, we're not talking just, people think the bumper in their car is that little bar, right? No, it was the whole back panel of the truck that he went up and ripped off the back of the truck and tossed it. It was fantastic, honestly.
Oh, for sure. Man, and
so all right, so that was the highlight. So we agree. We both agree. I'll be completely frank with people. I usually record the races, and it's a good thing I do. I fell asleep. I fell asleep through both races this weekend. It's been a rough kind of week working on stuff, whatnot. No excuses, but I straight up did. I had to go back and watch on fast forward. I'll be the first to admit with you, Sean, the racing product itself, 2 thumbs down for me. So lay it on me what you want to talk about next, because I'm with you on Joey Gase. I do want to mention this. Boo to DraftKings, FanDuel, any other sports books, NASCAR. Lines for the Xfinity race were pulled during practice and qualifying. Not abnormal. We see that. I checked every 15 minutes for 3 hours looking for new lines for that race, Sean, and guess when they came up? Never. Never dropped the line again. They dropped Chandler Smith line late Friday night from the 300, 350 that we had suggested people check out and do, down to 275. And I thought it might go lower than that after we had practice, quite frankly. Then they just yanked him entirely. You had nothing. No top 10, no top 5, no top 3, no winners, no head-to-heads, nothing. There were 0 lines. I understand it was a holiday weekend, but come on. What is that action, man?
That is just a failure not to get the information out there and not to let the people go out there and bet and just have some more enjoyment at the race. If you're gonna take the lines down and then just wait until the live betting comes up, I mean, that's not.
And
really
you know what? Then let's do that weekly, Sean. If that's what it's going to be, then let's post the lines. All right, Vegas, because we know you suck at setting these lines. At least I'm saying this outright because I'm confident I do a better job than you do. Set your lines, and then everybody knows when practice and qualifying starts, that's it. The only lines you're getting the rest of the way are live lines. They won't do that, though. You and I know that. They won't do that. They're going to try to scheme every way they can. So I don't want to steal your thunder, man. So breakdown, do you have any more thoughts on the Xfinity race? I know I did the article this week, so I don't know if that was as much of a focal point as always, but feel free to lay down some more reactions from the Xfinity event.
I still think, I ended up watching a good amount of the Xfinity race from this past weekend, and although there was a little bit of passing here and there, it still was very much uneventful. Not much going on, and at the front where they just kept talking about it, it was just a Joe Gibbs Racing pure dominance. Eric Almirola in the early portions of this race, and then Chandler just took over during that final stage and then ended up winning without much of an issue. So not really much I can react to there, Rich. Really not.
No, and look, this is now 2 years in a row. I'm on the plan, the opinion of stop calling it the action track. Let's call it the no action track. And look, I think NASCAR's kind of killed some short track racing in general. We'll talk about that later, but you can't go around with the name action track. And what cautions did we have? How many above and beyond the stage cautions? I think there was 2, 3. I mean, I'm not saying we got to have wrecks and cautions all over the place to be action, but when you call yourself the action track and it's nothing but going around and doing nothing and it's the same 2 or 3 leaders, that's not action to me. That's the exact opposite of action. And we talked about in the articles, you needed to hit on the dominators, and that was the case. If you didn't have the guys that dominated the race and led a bunch of laps, and there was only a few, you weren't going to get cashed in DFS. So I'm good moving on to the Cup race. I agree with you, Sean. I don't really have any differing ticks. I do have a tick, apparently. Differing take than take than you, but let's dig into the Cup race, man. I know you were bothered, and I don't even know where you want to start, so the floor is yours. Start where you want.
All right, let's get on into this here. So as for the Cup race, this race had some potential out there. Sure, Richmond wasn't the most exciting track. It has not really had a big standout race, big standout moment, or standout finish since about, I'd say maybe 2016 or 2017, if we really want to go that far back. We're talking about when it was like Edwards and Busch going for the win there. So, but even still, this Richmond was known for one thing. And one big thing in recent years that it is known for is strategy. When it comes to tire strategy and pit strategy, that's been something that's been big at this track within the past few years. We saw it at last year's spring race, and we even saw it 2 years ago. Ultimately, there was some strategy trying to be formed up during this race about midway through where drivers were planning to divide the stages up into set halves or thirds, and that made the grip very interesting to watch, especially as there were comers and goers. But what happened was about midway through the race, Kyle Busch ended up rubbing against the wall. He was still able to continue. He didn't really have that terrible of damage where he was going to go careening into traffic. NASCAR throws the caution anyway. It effectively kills the strategies of several drivers there, including Alex Bowman, who in the early going had one of the best looking cars. We were on him in DFS.
Yep.
He struggled in order to even get back onto the lead lap. And when he got back to the lead lap, he kept going to the tail end just because he had to use the free pass in order to get back going. The thing is, though, is that they shouldn't have really called the caution there. Somebody got way too trigger happy and just ended up pushing the button to make it yellow because Kyle Busch was able to continue on. And this is ridiculous because the fact of the matter is that this is not the first time this has happened, and NASCAR has also called cautions for even less ridiculous circumstances in history. The fact that this also happened, though, too, is what made some crew chiefs and teams afraid to even try strategy in the final stage. That ended up damaging the racing product.
Which you haven't touched on yet, but I think they made a bad call with a late caution also that impacted things. What really bothers me the most about it is it's like, I don't know if they have someone different pulling the trigger or if someone had too much coffee. I really don't, because the only thing consistent that we're seeing is the lack of consistency, right? Sean, it wasn't that long ago. We have seen cars with 2 laps to go, literally a couple of weeks ago, spin out. And you hear the TV announcers, hey, are they going to, oh, nope, he's rolling. What are we going to see? Oh, he's rolling. We don't see any tires being, as long as the tires aren't cut, throwing debris on the track. I get it. Keep the race going. Yes, we used to see drivers stall it. Oh, I don't know how I stalled it. At least have some showmanship with it, right? These guys get it rolling. They know it's the end of the race. They're fighting to get it to the pits. NASCAR made it a huge point to not waive a single caution in the road race. Like they had to be like Formula One, which we never used to be that way, but whatever. But we've gone to plenty of tracks where 2-3 laps or less, a guy spins and we don't. Could be the last lap and we don't. And I can think of 2 cautions at least, the one you just named and the one I'm thinking of later, that I don't think were worthy of cautions. Now, is that because the action track didn't have any cautions for the most part and they needed to make some activity? To your point, though, it killed strategy. And I was really disappointed because you brought it up. This track is still known for wearing tires. It was largely a non-issue. We had some comers and goers. And look, I wasn't expecting it to be like Bristol, but damn it, the fans liked Bristol. It was interesting. And yet NASCAR has done, 3 weeks ago, Sean, you and I talked about it. I said, look, NASCAR may have accidentally found a solution to their problem. They haven't done anything with it.
Exactly.
We're doing the exact same things we've been doing, and we're expecting a different result, which I've got a whole other point I want to make at the end here on that. But continue on here because I know there's more that bothered you this weekend.
All right, so as we progressed onto the race, it ended up being a normal Richmond race. The racing was having a modest amount of passes here and there, depending on who was going through the field. It was kind of like Phoenix in that regard. But then came about 2 laps to go when Kyle Larson ended up getting loose with Bubba Wallace there. Now, this one I can understand a little more because some smoke was thrown on the track as a result of the Larson spin, and that can affect visibility. I do get that portion, but really the part I have a problem with more than anything is after the pits and the drivers go forth and restart on the race. The whole restart, okay, let's make it clear here. There is a clear rule in NASCAR's rule book that says in black and white that the leader must go at the restart zone.
Which is a box. They have a range. There's a line. There's 2 lines on the painted on the track and the wall. 2 lines that show you where this restart. They have gone so far, Sean, is to make it bigger this year than they did a couple of years ago. Like there was a whole discussion on. You can see the zone on TV and at the track. Sorry, I just want to make that clear to everyone. That it isn't debatable where this mysterious line is. It's painted on the track.
Exactly. And they also marked off points on the walls, both inside and outside, to even indicate this too. Denny Hamlin, he goes a little bit before the restart zone. Well, maybe a little bit is being generous here, but he ends up basically blowing the start there. He ends up getting a bit of an advantage. And what does NASCAR do when it's clear that he jumped the restart? Let's not bother.
Sean, he was a clear 1/2 to 3/4 of a car length in front of Truex's nose when they hit that first restart line. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Truex the leader at that point, or was Denny the leader?
Denny is the control car.
He was the control car. Okay. Now, I do disagree with you slightly. I get your point about the smoke, but every time there's spin, there's a smoke. 2 to 3 laps to go in the race. Kyle Larson got it going again. There was zero reason to throw that caution, in my opinion. Earlier in the race, and I'm not one to say early into the race, you have different rules. I hate to see something fluky like that change an outcome of an event when it's not needed, okay? When we're midway through the race and it's been stagnant and boring, I really don't have a problem with, we used to call them phantom yellows. NASCAR used to be smart. When races got drawn out and boring, they would somehow magically either find debris, make you think there was debris, or somehow get a team to put debris out there. But there would be some reason to kind of, and they would usually be smart enough to wait until after strategy, right? Like everyone made a pit stop under green. So now no one's getting an advantage, right? Or shoot, this happened right after a caution. So we reset, let them do it. They actually you could argue that maybe they manipulated things as far as when they did things, that it was conscious effort. But I would argue they did it such that it had minimal impact on actual strategy and racing of the event. And at the very least, it made the show more enjoyable. We're not doing that now. And I know that's why they threw that caution with 2 to 3 to go, Sean. They love restarts. NASCAR is obsessed. Why? Because it's the thing that fans like most. Why? Oh, it's where all the cars start diving around. The average casual fan, and I'm probably going to piss some people off here, and I apologize. The average casual fan wants wrecks and chaos. You know, it's a lot like boxing, right? The average boxing fan doesn't have the appreciation for the skill, the jabbing, the scoring the points, the head bobs, the moving. If you're a true student of the sport, you appreciate those things a lot more. I'm not saying that we shouldn't understand or respect that, but holy crap, we've gotten so far away from letting races play out and letting strategy take place. We keep inventing these good finishes, and it's funny because you see these polls on if it's a good race or not. It's never whether the race is good. It's whether the finish was good. It could be a crap race, but if the finish was exciting, it scores and rates well. And NASCAR wanted this. Now, I'm with you, Sean. I do not understand how this is even a gray area. And I know as the week went on, you got even more upset about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about NASCAR's excuses on this?
So let's get into this here, Rich. So basically, the whole thing first stems from the fact that, NASCAR decided not to review it on the broadcast. On the Fox broadcast, they basically said, NASCAR is not reviewing this play. Denny Hamlin is officially the winner. So then a little after the race, they're like, we did actually end up reviewing the call. Denny Hamlin is the winner. At first, they acted like they didn't review the call. Then they're saying they did. And then after that, they said, Denny didn't jump the restart. The race is official. Hamlin wins. Then later on after that, when there's still some blowback and backlash on this finish, justifiably so there, Rich. Oh, boy. Then they're like, Denny himself on his podcast, he admitted he may have jumped the restart. He wasn't even focused on the restart zone because he was focused on Logano and Truex trying not to get past them. And he just said he may have ended up going just before the restart line. I believe Hamlin when he says that, but what the thing is, though, is that NASCAR still didn't have the gall to call it when there's a clear black and white rule behind it. It's outrageous.
Sean, how's it any different than, I didn't mean to grab his face mask, so you don't call it. Remember when the NFL did the whole inadvertent face mask and intentional face mask? Remember how that did not work at all? Like, that was a horrible thing, right? The judgment calls and everything else. To me, this is right in the same line. You have the rule. Whether he intentionally broke the rule or not, it really doesn't matter, okay? I don't think here's my opinion. They wanted Denny. Denny's kind of the villain right now, okay? NASCAR does better when we have a villain, all right? Whether people want to admit it or not, Dale Sr. was a villain for a long time, much like Kyle Busch, but way longer. He wasn't, people forget, he didn't win favorite NASCAR driver until after he died, okay? That's how much As a kid, I wore an Earnhardt shirt and got booed in the stands. Like, the man was hated. He dies, and all of a sudden, everybody and their brother loved him. NASCAR loves the villain, needs the villain. We need some of that rivalry. We need the personalities coming out. This was Denny's home track. I think they saw it play out the way they had hoped it played out. Denny has a habit of making some great one-liners and victory lane speeches, or they're on the front stretch there undertaking the checkered. I think they wanted it. They got it. Truex does not move the needle for NASCAR as much as Denny Hamlin moves the needle. And this is no knock on Truex, but I'm not going to say he doesn't have a personality. It just, he's not the most open, the most flamboyant. He's not going to be one that's going to go on a podcast, start his own podcast, start speaking his mind freely. Only recently has he gotten so frustrated. Are we getting some true emotions from Truex? And he's pissed. And rightfully so. He's pissed, and rightfully so. He got done wrong by his teammate. He got done wrong by NASCAR. He got done wrong last week by the team. He has been screwed over a few times this year. He's got every reason to be upset. I just think NASCAR wanted the story. They got the story they wanted. It was Denny's home track. They got everything they could have possibly wanted. And it's easy for them to be like, oh, well, the one that got me that you didn't touch on yet was, well, there's a little bit of wiggle room there where the restart zone really starts. There is.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? The whole thing is that if they're like, oh, if it's like just on the line, we might excuse it there. And I think that's fine enough if it's like too close to call. But on the other hand, though, what they then acted like was that, oh, yeah, we did review the call, and oh, yeah, we totally missed it. Denny Hamlin, he did jump the start. And they admitted this days after this race. Days. Whole freaking days.
After spending days of saying they did nothing wrong. After spending days of double downing that, no, it was totally fine.
Yeah, and it's all just because they were like, oh, we felt like we needed to make a call quick, and we didn't want, in order to have like any sort of controversy at the end of this race, in order to basically flip out the winner after the TV broadcast is done. But the thing is, NASCAR's done that before. Remember Pocono 2 years ago when Denny Hamlin won that race, and then they basically disallowed his finish and Kyle Busch's just because they failed post-race inspection. They could have done that here too, and that still would have been a valid call.
I forgot about that. I forgot they did that. There's just no consistency, Sean. There is, you know, longtime NASCAR fans say it all the time because people are like, well, we just want consistency. We just want consistency. The only thing consistent with NASCAR is NASCAR's inconsistency. You know, I put a tweet out earlier this week. If you want to get rid of, you know, I hear NASCAR Sirius radio announcers complain about all the conspiracy theorists with NASCAR and the black helicopters and all this. Okay. Well, let's understand something. One, we know teams and drivers have admitted after the fact to doing certain things to cheat. We know this. NASCAR's not going to catch everything. I don't think NASCAR conspires with certain drivers or teams to do these things. I don't. Okay. But these teams and drivers are going to do things to try to get an edge. They always do. Okay. So you have that. We know this is factual, NASCAR radio. We know these things have and do happen. That's why we've gone to this car. So you have that aspect of it. Well, when you change the rules in the middle of a competition to suit some sort of outcome, that is serious manipulation. And at some point, you have to either be honest and be like, we're creating our own storms here with these black helicopters or with these other issues because we're not consistent. I mean, if the NFL all of a sudden had a group of referees that stopped calling holding in the fourth quarter every time the Chiefs played, we already have people accusing things like that without the data to support it. We actually had the data to support it. Video evidence like we did this week with the restart. There'd be all sorts of black helicopter theories out there. People already say things like the NFL is even rigged, okay? And I'll tell you, I think the reason this has come up more and more is horrible officiating, judgment calls that shouldn't be judgment calls, putting way too much on the ownership. And I'll be frank, Sean, NASCAR admitted the 36 or 3 dozen penalties from COTA was a problem. They don't want to be the story. So they decided this week, we're just not going to do anything. I mean, I feel like it was almost an overreaction, knee-jerk reaction to what happened at COTA. It's frustrating, Sean. What I don't understand is it should not be this complicated. There are local short tracks all over this country that do not have the problem with lack of integrity. I don't know another way to put it. With lack of integrity, as far as their officiating goes, there are some and there are some fights, but collectively, for the most part, the short tracks do a better job than NASCAR does. And it's absolutely a shame. There's no reason for it. You're a professional sport, NASCAR. You want to be mainstream like NFL, but you can't even follow your own rules that you write. It's ridiculous. I can't even. I'm trying to stop saying some words because I'm about to say some words that are going to offend people because I think it's just the stupidest thing ever. And I want to touch on this. We were talking about how little action there was. NASCAR came out and said, we had 2,700 passes, one of the greatest of all time. Just like we heard. Oh, the other thing they said, this was one of the closest races in history because all 36 cars finished within 3 miles of each other or something like that, which is unheard of at these short tracks. Folks, just so you know, and I know I've harped on this, I'm using my hands here, okay? This and this, NASCAR calls 2 passes, okay? In my world, this, as Sean said to me on the phone on our show the other day, door, bumper, clear. That is something you hear consistently on NASCAR scanners. That's where the podcast name came from that the spotters use because they use that saying a lot. And it's not just a saying. They're letting the driver know the nose is at your door, nose is at your bumper. You are now clear. That means you can get up into your line. You have made and completed the pass. NASCAR doesn't like the fact that those numbers, one, they're harder to track because you can't just use a transponder. 2, those numbers do show the fact that we aren't seeing as much passing. Big Bill France back in the day said we needed the slower cars so the fast cars have somebody to pass. New NASCAR thinks if we're like ARCA and everybody's fast, it's good racing because it's good door to door. Look, I want door-to-door racing too, but door-to-door racing for 5 laps where they're not doing anything doesn't do much for me, man. If they're not able to complete the pass or make headway or lose headway or whatever, doesn't do much. And we know the shifting's playing into it and all of that. So to your point, now strategy should be a bigger factor, and now we got NASCAR putting a crapper on that because of how they want to officiate a race. This car, there have been some good things with this car. There are some very bad things. There is some good momentum going forward, Sean. And what frustrates me is NASCAR is crapping all over it. We could have really launched after Bristol. And what have we gotten since Bristol? 2 stinkers, dude.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just going to end with the fact of the matter is that NASCAR, if you're out there listening, if you're out there seeing this, do better. Be more consistent, and overall, just be transparent. If not, then make some new clear rules that don't leave the room for officiating calls like this. And
we don't want judgment calls.
End of this. Yeah.
We don't want judgment calls. Look, why are sports cool, Sean? Jeff Mann talks about this. When I swam in swimming, we had touch pads for timing, okay? You looked up at the scoreboard or the timing board. If my time was shorter or faster than yours, there was no disputing. I won. We had the same water. We had the same pool. We have 40 guys, 36 guys on this track. The machines are a little different. We get that. Your job is to make sure that everybody competes fairly. Your job is to not have an impact on the outcome. And I get you don't want to make a call there, but they broke the rules. Denny gave himself an unfair advantage, and it harmed another competitor, and that wasn't right. I'm not all about fair. Fair is what you take to ride the bus, right? But the fact of the matter is, the reason what sports makes sports great is it's supposed to be a pure competition. It's supposed to have the same set of rules for everybody involved and to see who's better. When you officiate like that, that's not what happens, man. And I'm with you. Be better, be more consistent. But I got to tell you, Sean, I don't think it's going to happen.
We'll see. I have my doubts considering the history, like you're thinking. So, Anyway, let's just move on.
Well, let's move on. Let's recap some of the news real quick. I think we need to fly through this, Sean, because we really went long on that, and I think it was worth it for the record. Maybe Sean and I just needed to get it off our chest. But look, we're trying to make this a fun, entertaining show as well as informative. If you're into NASCAR, I think we've been putting out a good product. And, hey, come over to fantasyguru.com. Check us out. Check out everything else. You can watch, on YouTube here for free. So, continue to do that. Hit the like, subscribe button. That would be amazing. But let's touch on some, and I'm going to fly through this, Sean. So if you want to add stuff, hey, just, flag me here. Ryan Truex is going to drive the number 20 Joe Gibbs Xfinity Series car for 3 races, Texas, Talladega, and Dover. Look, guys, he's done well for Joe Gibbs before. I'm not going to say he's my favorite to win at any one of these tracks, but I will say this. Watch out for Ryan Truex at Dover. Just, you heard it here first.
Yep.
Austin Dillon and the number 3 RCR team have made crew chief change again. Keith Rodden is out. Justin Alexander is back in. In all fairness, I heard people say it's time to make a driver change. Fair, but I got to tell you, we have seen Dillon run much better than what he has been running, specifically with Justin Alexander. I really didn't understand why they went away from him to begin with, because that was kind of the best we had seen Dillon be. I'm hopeful this helps the team, Sean, because Kyle Busch needs a better set of notes than just his own at this point.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think Justin Alexander, look, we've seen this with Austin Dillon. A lot of his success came with Justin Alexander as his crew chief, and that's just not even at the Cup Series level. He's done so within the lower series as well. But Justin Alexander, all 4 of Austin Dillon's Cup wins have come with Alexander as the crew chief, as well as most of his playoff appearances. So really, going back to what works, I think is a good thing, especially for this 3 team that's desperately been needing it since really 2023, which was the first year with Keith Rodden as crew chief, was Dillon's worst year statistically speaking. So,
and I'm hoping this helps the 8 team too. I'm with you, and I hope it helps the 8 team too, because I want to see RCR be relevant again. Stuart Haas might be selling 1 or more of their charters next season. Look, there's a ton of rumors around Stuart Haas. Whether they haven't re-signed with Ford, that contract's up at the end of the year. This is working out quite interestingly. We haven't heard more about the Honda rumor. I would hate to see Stuart Haas go from 4 cars to 3 cars. That being said, look, the rumors of teams being in the mix, Trackhouse would go to 3, Legacy would go to 3, 2311 would go to 3. I think JR Motorsports is probably a long shot. We keep hearing that name. I think that's more fan-driven than anything else. Every time you hear Junior and Kelly Earnhardt, what's her last? It's hyphenated. Dale's
Kelly
sister,
Earnhardt
Kelly. Miller, thank you. It's not made financial sense. Kelly is very savvy with that, and if it doesn't make financial sense, she is not going to support it. And Junior has said that, and I think Junior really wants to see what they do with the charters. I mean, paid $41 million by Spire, when the previous one was like 14 or 12. There's a lot of moving pieces here, guys. Silly season, folks. Silly season this year is going to be quite interesting. It's always interesting, but I think this year it's going to be quite more unique than what we've seen in years past. I'm excited about this, Sean. We talked about it briefly off air. iRacing confirms. I knew iRacing had bought the rights to do a NASCAR game. I'm a little disappointed that the release is for fall of 2025. I'm with Sean. I don't want it rushed out. I've been playing World of Outlaws, which is also done by iRacing and Monster Games, who I believe is also doing the combo for the NASCAR game. I believe it's going to be a combination with iRacing and Monster. Hey, it's got to be an upgrade from what we've seen from the last 2 or 3 games. I've been buying them religiously for years. I just hate the timing. I mean, look, we get excited for NASCAR season come the spring and whatnot. Fall's kind of football time. So, but maybe they change, maybe they adapt, maybe it's delayed and it's actually going to be winter of 26. I don't know. All I know is we haven't seen a good NASCAR game on the console system. Thank you, iRacing.
Oh, for sure. And by the way, just this image you see right here was the first concept art that iRacing actually released on this game. So quick thoughts on that, Rich. What do you think?
That leads me to believe they're going to have some sort of cool career mode. That's been kind of missing from the last couple NASCAR games. I'm excited. It also looks like they'll have an interesting paint booth, which a lot of the guys really like the paint booth and to do things on the car. Be kind of curious what they do, because years ago, people used to put naked pictures on the cars and all sorts of things. And so they've had to change what they allow. So I'll be kind of curious to see what they do, because I know the World of Outlaws game, they really dumbed it down. And I think part of the reason for that was to look, I mean, I play on that regularly. There's a guy that he used just basic shapes and made a large penis on the side of the car, a couple of them actually. So I know things will get kind of taken to extreme levels. But when we used to do it back on Papyrus, before it was iRacing and all that, man, I had some fun doing those paint. I would spend hours in the paint shop. So I'm looking forward to this. I've been raving about this for a while. So that was cool to finally see some sort of confirmation. And while we're talking about the paint booth, let's get into some paint schemes, Sean.
Yes. Let's get on into it. All right. Start us off here, Rich. What do you got for us first?
I can't believe I'm going this route, but I was so taken back by the opposite color scheme. Give me Kyle Larson in the Hendrick red. I don't recall ever seeing the Hendrick red. It's always been blue before.
Yeah, actually, there's a reason for this, Rich. I'm not sure if you remember reading about it, but all 4 of the Hendrick Motorsports cars are going to have red on it in order to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the company, because this Martinsville race was when they first made their debut as a team. So all the red schemes, for Larson, Byron, Bowman, and, just the rest of the team, they're all going to have red. Chase. Yeah, Chase too. So
I didn't even pick up on that. My bad, man.
Speaking of which, that should connect right towards my first paint scheme pick, which is actually the Byron scheme. And this really looks sick.
It is sexy, man. I'm not going to deny that. That is sexy.
I wish this was his main paint scheme in a way, because this looks so good, Rich.
It really does look sharp, man. It really does. Man, there's a lot of red cars on the track this week.
Yeah, even the Exalta, I like the positioning of it. The red flames with the 24 reminds me of the good old Gordon days. So, I love that too. So
it does have that Gordon throwback look to it, man. It looks very sharp. I'm usually not big on red, but because the flames are a little different red, and that's the Exalta kind of red, it does look pretty good. I really, really don't have a problem with that scheme at all. I forgot it was the 40th anniversary. So thank you for reminding me, sir.
Yeah, and although we do not have the Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman schemes pictured here this week, they also do look pretty good too. I was almost considering the Chase scheme for one of my picks too. So
I do like the Chase scheme. I thought the Bowman one was kind of meh, but the Chase one I did think looked pretty solid personally.
All right, let's get into your next pick here, Rich. What do you got for us?
I'm back on the Brad Keselowski train, man. I tell you what, this guy has been fire. I don't know who's doing his paint schemes these days, but I got to tell you, man, I have been digging a lot of them. I get it. It's basic. I like the silver number, the bodyguard used well. Fastenal got its little plug in there, the black and the gold. I just think this looks great, man. And I love how all their cars have that logo symbol thing there at the bottom on the door. No matter the paint scheme, they're running some version of that logo or symbol. That's got to be some sort of play off the RFK logo from what I can tell, because it's on all their cars.
Yeah, this looks really cool. I actually almost picked this one too as one of my choices. This scheme really looks nice. It's colorful. It pops. I love it, man. I just do.
Yeah, it's sexy.
All right, I'm going to get into my other paint scheme choice, which is the Yahoo logo skin for Christopher Bell. Yahoo's back with the 20 car this week. I've always loved that little purple there. You don't see too many purple cars on track, and the mixture of the purple and white, it's very simple looking, but it really is effective. I've always loved when he's ran this paint scheme before.
I don't disagree, man. I don't disagree.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Sexy. And I like that the Y and the explanation point on the hood is pretty cool. It just looks kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, simple but very effective. I'm thinking maybe that C Bell is going to be one of the faster cars out there too. So we might be seeing this on the actual race. I'm looking forward to that. Now I know we only usually do 2 paint schemes, but I did have to shout out one more paint scheme just because we keep talking about this sponsor's paint schemes all season long,
I almost picked it, man.
and that's the Josh Berry.
I'm so glad you pulled it because I was like, do I pick it again? Like I was this close.
You and I both.
All right. Yeah, this one's gonna look sexy. And I tell you what, Barry ran well here in Xfinity. Harvick's been kind of so. Stewart Haas in general has been good here. So I'm very curious to see this car on the track because that Mobile has been hitting home runs with their paint schemes this year. They really have.
Yeah, I had to shout them out, especially because it feels like almost every week we've been gushing over the Mobile One paint schemes. We got to do so this week, especially when it's gold like this. I love the fact that it's a gold car. That's going to shine on track.
I don't disagree. And hey, remember, if you want to replay this, you want to follow up, you want to listen more, go to fantasyguru.com, check out our articles. You can click on the little gurus, click on me, Sean, or any of our staff there. We all have wonderful content. $39.99 gets you a whole year of everything except for NFL and Major League Baseball, really. I thought USFL was included or UFL. I don't know for sure, but heck, for $40, you get literally all the betting and DFS on every other sport: PGA, MMA, NHL, NBA, horse racing. Slappy's horse racing is fun stuff, by the way. NASCAR. We'll be talking some more racing. Indy 500 coming up. Just saying. So we got all that covered. We are going to be short on time, so I'm going to kind of fly us through a couple of things here, Sean. What should we expect from this track? What type of racing? Look, I'm expecting a lot like what we saw at Phoenix. It's a flat track, kind of a mix between Phoenix and Bristol. It's a very short track, but it's a flat track. For DFS and betting strategies, here I'm going to be real simple this week with everyone, and this goes almost tenfold for the Cup race because of all the shifting. Be careful chasing place differential this week. You're going to get yourself in trouble. The amount, how do I want to say this? The rate at which the leaders will catch the tail end of the field here at this track is hard to fathom. When I say 10 to 12 laps, I'm not exaggerating. We very could likely see cars going a lap down somewhere between laps 10 and 20. And the hard thing is you could be a fast car. This is so much a one groove track. If you're stuck on the outside, you could go from second to 12th in less than a lap. So we have to be very, very careful. We have to hit on dominators. And I'm going to tell everybody, I am not going to be skittish about using a cheap driver or a value driver that qualified inside the top 15, knowing they may drop back 5 or 6 spots, because what I don't want is to go chasing someone in 35th that I think might have a car, only to see them go laps and laps down and never get above 30th place. Because at Martinsville, it's easy to go multiple. Once you start going a lap down, it's really, we have seen fast cars go 2 laps down, finally get them back. And because cautions fell, they were on the lead lap there for the last, go. But holy crap, are you playing with fire? So, Sean, feel free to touch on it anymore. I mean, it's another short track. It's a flat track, but that's where I'm at this week.
That is 100% true there, Rich. I am right on board with you there as far as the strategy is concerned. You do want to make sure you get those top dominators. After all, in this race 1 year ago, there were only 2 drivers that ended up leading more than 100 laps, and 9 drivers total ended up leading laps. A bunch of them were around like the 20 to 30 mark, but there was a couple of them that only led something like 7 laps or so too. We've got to hit on those dominators. That's just signature short track strategy. And the lap count is among the highest in all the Cup Series races. So there is plenty of points in order to get for your lineups from leading laps.
There's only 2 tracks we go to that I'm aware of where we do 500 laps.
Yep. It's this in Bristol.
Bristol, right. And those are the only ones. And when you go look, and you guys may or may not have, but I know Sean and I have, we've gone and looked at the drivers. Let me break it down for you, whether it's trucks, Xfinity, or Cup. Cup, because there's so many laps, you get a little bit more, but guys like leading 4 or 5 laps. I am not exaggerating when you only see 2 to 3 lap leaders in trucks in Xfinity. You only see 4 or 5 in Cup. Like this is significant. And so what we need to do is we do need to hit on placing. We got to be careful assuming too much of chasing that stuff in the back, because I'm telling you, folks, we are going to see a couple of good drivers and good teams go laps down early and just have a brutal day out there. And look, we should see some beating and banging. We haven't, for the most part, all that much in the new car. Shifting has changed this racetrack to make it even more difficult to pass on. I go back to Phoenix, very similar flat track, much bigger. Guys, we only had a handful of cars that were able to go from the back to the front, and it took them all race. Christopher Bell was by far the best car, and he had to do it three times, and it took damn near a third of the race each time he did it. So it is what it is. Trust us. We'll point you in the right direction, but don't go chasing place differential this week, people. We'll have a little bit of a mix in there, but you're playing with fire if you do that. Notable starts this week. I'm going to fly through those real quick, Sean, or at least let me do the trucks, and I'll let you do Xfinity Cup. Trucks, we got William Salwich, Sammy Smith, Blake Lothian, Stephen Malazzi. Oh. He's got an Italian name, and I screw it up every time. Malazzi. Caden Honeycutt, Cam Waters, Justin Carroll, Jack Wood. A couple of highlights. William Salwich is only 17. He's already had a top 10 finish at Martinsville. Don't sleep on this cat in the number 1 truck. Sammy Smith has struggled this year since going to JRM, at least relative to last year. He's hopping in Aspire trucks, the same truck that Kyle Busch hops in. I expect Sammy Smith, who's been very good in the Xfinity Series in the past, to be good in the trucks here. Name to watch. Caden Honeycutt's going to be a nice little sleeper value pick. He's been under the radar, but doing quite well. Some of these other guys, more just kind of fluff to add to the mix. Lead us off here with the Xfinity here, Sean.
So the list of the Xfinity notable drivers, these are like the part-timers that are going to be in this week's race. Start with Garrett Smithley in the 6, not expecting much out of him. Myatt Snyder in the 07, again, not expecting much there. Logan Bearden in the 14. Depending on how he looks in practice, he could be an interesting play. Taylor Gray, one of the part-timers that I have my eye on, being in a Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. He finished well at Richmond last week. Eric Almirola in the 20. You could say a lot of the same sort of stuff. He ended up dominating a portion of Richmond last week. One to watch there, too. After that, Corey Heim, another Toyota driver, going in for Sam Hunt Racing again. He looked very good last week as well. So that's another one on my radar right there for Xfinity. You'd have Akinori Ogata in the 35 car, not expecting much there. Matt DiBenedetto in the 38. Could expect some results there depending on qualifying. And then there's Joey Gase in the 53. Not expecting much from the car, even though hopefully we'll see if he throws another bumper or two this weekend, but who knows. Ryan Vargas in the 74. That's the Mike Harmon car. Not expecting much there because that car's never usually been fast at tracks like this. And then you have Carson Quapple in the 88 for JRM. So that's going to be very interesting to watch right there. And then the number 92 car, the driver has still not been announced, I believe, as of this recording. So
it was not. It was not. I double checked because I was wondering the same thing as I was going through the article. So it's kind of weird how even the entry list on NASCAR's media site doesn't have names updated quite yet. Jayski's usually pretty good about it. JC didn't have an update either. So we only got a couple of names. Josh Williams, who we're familiar with Xfinity, and David Starr. For us old timers, that name goes back a ways. He had at one point he had a decent little truck career and some Xfinity. So I'm not expecting much, especially with that team, but it's just kind of interesting. I mean, gosh, I have to look up his age, but he's got to be somewhere near 50 plus.
Yeah, David Starr, he is pretty up there. So let's see. I'm going to look it up real quick.
Okay, you look it up. All right.
He's 57.
Okay. Like I said, I figured I almost said 60. I was like, is he really 60? Man, well, he's getting close.
Got a few more years before then.
Yep. But yeah. Anyway, remember, head over to fantasyguru.com, get signed up. With that $40, you get the Discord. Discord gets you direct link to us. You can tag me and Sean looking at lineups, asking us questions about bets. Yell things at us if you like. Call us names. That happens, whatever. In addition to that, guess what, guys? It's a direct link to like all the cool people like Russ and Armando and Tyler and Ray and Jeff and Chris and Rob and Scott. I'm going to be forgetting all sorts of names here. The bearded one, Slappy. You get direct links to all those guys. So take advantage of it. You can also find our articles there. You can click on the Gurus, find us, and go back and look at any of our old articles, make fun of us, tell us we did great, tell us we did horrible, whatever. So check out fantasyguru.com and the Elite Plus Network. Well, we're going to be short on time here, so we're going to have to kind of fly through this. I do say, though, that our reactions to Richmond were warranted and valid, so I'm not too worried about it because guess what? Sean's going to have a Cup article, Sean's going to have an Xfinity article, and I'm going to have a truck article. So no matter what we put here, guess what? It's going to change and get updated because we're doing all this before practice and qualifying. Yes, we are doing this blind, everyone. We do this every week. You would be shocked at how accurate Sean and I can be batting blind. It's kind of crazy. Look, we got a lot of overlap here, Sean. Top price drivers to watch. Both of us are on Denny Hamlin. You're on Chase Elliott. I'm on the Larson Byron side. Look, let's get the elephant in the room addressed. Hendrick Motorsports, and I talk about in the overview article, between their first race, between their tragic history at the track, between their dominance at the track. Never, ever, 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 ever count out a Hendrick Motorsports vehicle in this track and race. Never. Don't ever do it.
Sure.
So
100%.
Chase Elliott, it's funny. The only one I'm not really kind of in on this week is Bowman because he's had some struggles, although he did look good last weekend. Got kind of screwed with the strategy. We don't have Bowman listed here. Of course, he's not top price, but look, I got no problem with Elliott, Larson, or Byron. I don't know who I really like right now. Right now, I'm just kind of on a gut shot leaning Byron. I kind of like the odds and whatnot, but Sean, I'm not betting against him. And then we got teammates for the other two. Who's your third driver here, Sean?
So we're both let's just spoil the fact we're both on Team Penske this week there.
Yeah.
He's got Brian Blaney, who I also like a lot and almost put in this spot here too. But I've got Joey Logano, especially after that showing last week at Richmond where he was right up there within the top 10, top 5, most of that race. That was the first legitimate showing. And we should have expected a little bit more of that despite his slow start to the season, just because Richmond is a great track. But let's not put it past here. Logano is amazing at Martinsville as well. And it's one of those cases where people don't even expect it. In fact, actually, Logano, he currently has a long streak there of 9 top 10 finishes in the last 9 races. He's super consistent here.
He was almost in my list, Sean. He's 16 top 10s in the last 20 races at Martinsville.
Yeah, absolutely insane. He is really good here.
And Denny has an incredible record here, too. He's got 25 top 10s in 36 total races. Like, those two gentlemen, plus the Hendrick teams, and Blaney's been very good here the last couple years. Similar equipment as Joey. So, Sean and I have our... Go ahead.
I do want to say one thing about Hamlin, though, and this is something that has to be said. When it comes to short track history at Richmond, Bristol, and Martinsville combined, this is a crazy statistic. But in the last 6 races, he's been top 5 every time and led multiple laps in all of them.
That's insane. That's insane. And look, Sean and I have our work cut out for us this week because there's only going to be 2 or 3 of these names of all the names we just listed that are going to be likely dominators or are dominators. And practice is only going to, as we learned this last weekend, don't read too much into practice. But we talked about it on the show because of practice being early in the morning and the race being at night. There was a problem there, and it showed. The people in the booth talked about it. Blaney was on everybody's radar, and boy, running that night totally screwed them all up. But Sean and I are going to have our work cut out for us this week, but I already like the fact that we're doing a lot of overlap here. Mid-tier, well, we could spoil the fun on the mid-tier. Sean and I both agree, Stewart-Haas Racing. And we're not joking. I mean, go ahead and talk about that, Sean.
All of Stewart-Haas Racing.
Right.
All 4 drivers. They're around the same price range, too, on DraftKings, about the $7,200 up to about 7,600. They're the next 4 drivers in line there. But Stewart-Haas, you have to remember this race 1 year ago, and I don't think enough people are talking about this, but 2 of their drivers led about half of the race total combined. Right. Chase Briscoe and Ryan Preece. And this is also one of Briscoe's very best tracks statistically in the Cup Series as well. I mean, his stats are very good, and I think overall, both of the sites have him underpriced for the amount of potential performance, and we've seen it on these shorter tracks that some of these SHR cars have been showing the speed at this track type, so I'm expecting results from them too. All 4 of them, I think, are worthy contenders. You go based off of the practice times, who's going to be the best looking one. But I'd say you can make a very strong case for all of them, even Noah Gragson, because he's been very good at this track in the Xfinity Series as well.
Well, and Almirola finished second in the number 10 car last year and 6th in the other, 6th and 2nd or 2nd and 6th. I may have the order wrong. Same car, and that's the equipment he's going to be in. So I'm with you. And look, Ford, I think, is still a little bit behind. I think Toyota and Chevy, I think Ford might be missing a little something on the aero side of things still. We don't have that as much of an issue, even at Bristol, even though it's a little more high speed. But here at Martinsville, I mean, shoot, Sean, it was years ago. We used to see no front ends on these cars because of all the beating and banging, and the aero was a non-issue. So I think this is one of the few areas where RFK, too, potentially could finally, knock on the door here. But I'm with you. Historically speaking, JGR, Hendrick, Penske, and here recently Stewart-Haas. Actually, after Kurt Busch got to Stewart-Haas, and they had that alliance with Chevy at the time with Hendrick, that's when Stewart-Haas really kind of came around here at Martinsville. So I'm with you on all those. We both have Ross Chastain. Look, I'm probably going to beat this drum. As long as Kyle Busch is, near $8,000, I'll take a shot on him as a mid-tier driver. He has enough talent to be top 15 in pieces of crap equipment. So I'll take the Kyle Busch side, but I'm kind of intrigued to your take on your third guy here, Sean.
So I do want to mention this real quick about Ross Chastain. He's another driver you have to like at this track as well. He's finished top 15 in the 4 races that he's been at Martinsville since joining Trackhouse Racing, and 2 of those have been top 10 finishes. So we have to really keep that in mind. But the last driver that I have my eye on, and this one's going to be a bit of a surprise, and I know some people might not like to hear this name, Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace. Ultimately, just because he's actually been quite solid within the recent races at Martinsville. The last 3 races, he's finished 11th or better every time. So that's something we have to keep in mind. And we also have to consider that Bubba was running pretty good at Richmond last week as well, too. So he's finally having something figured out when it comes to these shorter tracks. And that, I think people shouldn't sleep on that.
No, I don't disagree. I think that's fair. He's been doing better too overall, and 2311's got the equipment. Look, 2311 equipment is on par with JGR. So if we like Truex, and I talk about him in the article, and we both like Hamlin, and we know Ty Gibbs is going to be in the hunt, right? And we know you talked about Christopher Bell. You've got to kind of like Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace too. You do. So I'm with you there. Yeah, I don't disagree. Why don't you lead us off on the value drivers is where you and I very much disagree. And I have a feeling you and I are probably going to pivot our opinions once we see practice this week.
Oh, for sure. I'm just going to tell you right now, I think the value tier for this week is kind of a crapshoot.
It is.
Even the drivers I'm listing, they're not drivers I have a high amount of confidence in until we see practice. But I've got Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, and Daniel Hemrick. Austin Dillon, when it comes to these value picks, he has the best history there, the best average finish around 18th or so. And considering that he's now going to have Justin Alexander back as his crew chief, I think we might see a potential uptick in performance, especially if we see it in practice. I think he's one of those drivers that could be a sneaky play if the circumstances line up. And Austin Cindric, he has 2 finishes of 11th or better in 4 starts at Martinsville, and that's Penske equipment. Let's not forget about that. And as for Daniel Hemrick, he's just been very good at this track in the Xfinity Series, and qualifying hasn't exactly been his strongest suit. He's a driver that I like that you could use in order to stick into your lineup use that cap flexibility, and then just get more of those mid or top price guys in there.
So my three are more gut shots. All right. We have seen road racers take to Martinsville quite well. Juan Pablo, I talked about this in the article. Juan Pablo Montoya took to it right away. AJ Allmendinger struggled early, but then really became pretty good and talented here. And Juan Pablo talked about it. It's the corners are flat and tight, which is very much like a road course, right? It's very much like a hairpin turn. And I love the way he described it. You enter like a gentleman. You've got to be on the brakes, but you've got to be under control under the brakes. And you exit like an animal. You have got to find a way to get all that power to the rear end and go and launch down those long straightaways. It is very much like a road course. We see that at Sonoma, with the hairpin turn and then the launch going down across the start-finish line and so on. So I'm kind of looking at Michael McDowell. I know he's let us down a little bit the last couple of weeks, but man, when he's not getting top 10s, he's running top 10 or finishing 11th, 12th, 13th. I can't get away from John Hunter Nemechek. And I know I went both him and Eric Jones as teammates. I don't love that, but they're cheap. And I'm banking on, and this is largely a gut shot, guys. Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon each have 9 wins at this track, okay? Jimmy knows how to get around this track. Jimmy is, I'm sure, somehow involved with the team, what they're doing. I can't believe that Eric Jones and John Hunter aren't leaning on Jimmy and asking questions and the team and so on. So since they're so cheap, as we sit today without practice, I'm rolling blind. Give me some Jimmy Johnson love at Martinsville. And we ain't got Jimmy driving, so I'll go with his 2 drivers.
I think that's pretty valid, especially because John Hunter Nemechek, he's been very good at this track at the Xfinity level before. I believe he's also a former winner there in the Xfinity series as well. So last
spring race.
Yeah, something that we have to keep in mind. And although Eric Jones doesn't have the best of statistics at this track, I think he's a driver that just because Toyota equipment, I think if he qualifies deep enough, he's somebody that I actually would take a shot on. The only one of the 3 I'm not as certain about is Michael McDowell, believe it or not.
It's a wild one, man.
Yeah, and it's just because despite the road racing experience, he's never really been that great at this track. In fact, actually, he only has 1 top 15 finish in his entire Cup career at Martinsville.
This is true. Like I said, these were all more gut shots. It's McDowell has, historically speaking, I felt like McDowell picked and choose where they brought the equipment to. Do you know what I mean? They made sure they had it at the super speedways. They made sure they had it at the road courses. I don't know that Martinsville was necessarily on the radar, and I very well could be wrong on this because he hasn't. He doesn't have the road racing success at this track that I kind of talked about, but he's cheap. I don't think he's going to be high owned. That team overall both him and Gilliland have shown speed, man, that I'm kind of enamored with, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah. I think Gilliland, he's also exhibited some good finishes before at Martinsville, but the only thing I have that could be a knock against Gilliland was that both of those good finishes that he had were in the fall race at Martinsville, and he's never finished well within the spring race.
It is really weird how many drivers I noticed that with. Cole Custer was like that for Xfinity. I was really shocked to be like, wow, you were really, really good in the fall, or you were really, really good in the spring and terrible in the fall. It was just very odd. Let's rattle off our core bet winners real quick. Both of us are on Denny Hamlin. He's floating around 450 to 500, so 4.5 to 5 to 1, somewhere around there. Just like our picks above, I'm on Blaney. He's on Logano. Look, similar odds, plus 700, plus 900, depending on the sites you're at. Logano's a little bit longer. Since he's a little longer, if you were going to make me choose one, I'd probably lean that way. That's how Sean's got his listed. He's on Logano. Sean's also on Chase Elliott. I love that as a call, especially at 1,100. I think you want to talk about odds being off. That's a set of odds that are off. Mm-hmm. Martin Truex is a little low. This is one of my gut shots. Guys, a win's coming for Truex. And a mad Martin Truex, it's kind of interesting to watch. We've seen it only a few times. So I'm kind of on an island here with Truex at plus 750. I'm actually hoping those odds drop a little bit by the time we go green flag racing. I do think Martin Truex needs to be on the radar. I love your long shot call at Ryan Preece. I forgot all the laps he led there last year at plus 5,500. I didn't really do a longer shot. I just feel like William Byron at plus 1,200 is a little longer than it probably should be. I kind of like him more than Larson this week. I don't really know why. Larson's won here. Byron hasn't. Byron has won an Xfinity race here 2 years ago.
Byron did win at this track before.
Oh, did he? Oh, yes, right. He did.
2022 in the spring when he dominated and led over 200 laps.
Yeah, that's right. He did. So I'm kind of on that. Look, there's no way I'm not going to have a list without a Hendrick driver in it, just saying. Like, I'm not going to have no matter where you find me on core 4 bets or anything, one Hendrick driver is going to be in the mix. Sean, why don't you lead us off with your core 4 DFS picks?
Alrighty there, Rich. Getting into my DFS core 4 picks, I have Denny Hamlin, 11,500 on DraftKings, 14,000 on FanDuel. He's just a driver I think is to beat here or pretty much at short tracks anywhere. Joey Logano, 9,500 on DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel. I just love where Logano is priced this week. You can easily take advantage of it for any lineup. Then you have Chase Briscoe, just because I think out of all the SHR cars, he's been the most consistent so far this season, the one I trust most in order to get a good finish. He's 7,500 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel, especially like the price there. And then specifically for DraftKings, my last pick is Austin Dillon at 6,800. We mentioned about it before with the crew chief change. We could see an uptick in performance. And then for FanDuel specifically, Ryan Preece, just because I love the price that Preece has here. And he's a little bit more closely priced compared to Austin Dillon, but I greatly prefer Preece, especially after that performance where he almost could have won had it not been for a pit road penalty late.
Yes. I forgot that was a pit road penalty. Good call out. My group's not a whole lot different. So just so everyone knows, I'm locked out of my FanDuel account. Someone tried to apparently cheat in there and use the password. It wasn't me, so I tried to contact because it says, hey, if that wasn't you, please contact us. I tried to contact them, and I've gotten nowhere. So my FanDuel account is locked again. I got to get it figured out. Anyhow, so these are all DraftKings pricing. Give me Hamlin at 11.5. Look, Sean's rattled off the info. I don't know how we're going to get away from Hamlin, how we don't think he's one of the top dogs. I could easily get away from William Byron. The reason I went with him is his pricing. Larson's more expensive. Bell's more expensive. Everybody else that I kind of like in that group is more expensive, including Joey Logano. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not including Joey Logano. An easy pivot from Byron to Logano that I would totally be for would be Byron to Logano, save the $300. I went with Noah Gragson, more of every time we keep doubting him, he seems to do well. And I can't get past the fact that Eric Almirola really did so well with this car last year. It's the same team. So at $7,100, I felt like Noah Gragson was kind of a steal, depending on where he qualifies. And look, John Hunter Nemechek at $6,500 on DraftKings is stupid cheap, in my opinion. He absolutely dominated the Xfinity race in the 20 car. And I believe it was the spring race. Dominated it last year. It's partly why I'm all in on Eric Almirola for Xfinity this weekend. So give me John Hunter. And look, if you go with the 6,500 and 7,100, you have some options to really chase some heavy hitters at the top end of your lineups. So I do want to find some values I can lean on. Sean's right. It's kind of a crapshoot, but if we can get in that, 6,800, 6,500, 7,100 for our bottom two drivers, I think we can put together a pretty tangible lineup as far as it being competitive.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm just going to say this here, but this is definitely a more FanDuel-friendly week than a DraftKings-friendly week.
Oh, I don't disagree. I just wish I could get in my FanDuel account, man.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll figure that out off the air.
I'm going to have to somehow. So, well, we ran a little long, not too long. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I appreciate y'all letting us talk about Richmond because Sean and I both had some very big frustrations. And I'll be frank, Sean, I don't think we're alone in the NASCAR community. And I doubt any from NASCAR watches. Shame on them. They should. But look, NASCAR, you need to start paying attention to your fans a little bit more. You have alienated the hardcore long-time ones. You've admitted that. You've started to draw them back in with some fun things and cool things like we saw at Bristol. And you're managing to take that momentum and crap all over it with poor calls, being involved too much, and not being honest about what is working and what isn't working. And really, NASCAR, this is a prime opportunity, and I hope you do something with it because, man, it was fun and exciting. For the first time in years, I was excited after Bristol, Sean. And now after the last 2 weeks, I'm ready to throw up my arms and go, when's football start?
Well, maybe, hopefully, once we're done with this whole little block of short tracks, maybe we'll get into some other track types, and then maybe we'll see where this car has been shining more so on some of the larger ovals in the 1.5 miles. So that'll be like a bit of a palate cleanser, hopefully.
Hopefully. But my beef, though, Sean, I love the short track racing. That's what drew me to NASCAR way back in the day. I mean, we used to, man, people forget what old paved Bristol looked like, right? People forget what old North Wilkesboro looked like, old Rockingham looked like. I mean, we went around to a lot of these kind of smaller tracks. Even Richmond back in the day wasn't nearly as big as far as well, I guess the banking was the same. They just put kind of the concrete in. But I hate to see the short track racing take such a negative hit when there's been so much good that we see what works, Sean. Make tire wear matter, okay? If you're not going to give us horsepower, if you're not going to get rid of shifting, get us tires that wear so ridiculously that it makes strategy and tire management a thing like it was in the 1970s.
Yes. Let's do it.
All right. Sean, thank you again. The man, the myth, the legend. I'm loving the hat this week, by the way. Looks sharp. Please go to fantasyguru.com. Check out, you can find the show here on YouTube. Go to fantasyguru.com if you haven't already and subscribe. Hit us up in Discord and hit us with some questions and thoughts. Sean, you got any final thoughts, man? Take it away.
All righty. I'm just going to tell you, be sure to really stay tuned in and logged in this weekend on the Discord because a lot is going to change over the course of the weekend. So get on to fantasyguru.com, get onto the Discord. We'll help you out from there, and we'll just get you covered all weekend.
Sounds good. On behalf of Sean Engel, I'm Rich Maletto. You can find Sean on Twitter or X at SeanE247. That's SeanE247. You can find me on the Twitter box at Fantasy Bosco, all spelled out FANTASYBOSCO. Find us in Discord as Sean Engel and Rich Maletto. Tag us, wave at us, yell at us, whatever you want. It's been fun. We're ready for Martinsville. Hey, one of my favorite places. I hope we get some good short track racing, but I'm not holding my breath, Sean.
We shall see. Hopefully, I don't have to go and get heated up again for another week. Although I'm sure you'd love to see that, Rich.
I'm for it. I'm here for it, Sean. I'm here for it. But if not, hey, for everybody at fantasyguru.com and half of the Elite Plus Network, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.